Welcome, mortals and scholars, to our explainer of the text. Go ahead and grab a seat right in the front row of our little cosmic theater, because today we are watching a tragedy unfold. But not just any tragedy, a hilarious, entirely self-inflicted tragedy. I'll be your guide today, a cynical jester of sorts, as we examine the deliciously grim downfall of Donar, the master of the storm. You see, this isn't your standard run-of-the-mill heroic tale. No way. This is an inverted descent. It's a dark, gothic fable where we're going to look at things through the eyes of the spirit siblings, those glorious, chaotic tricksters who desperately tried to save a stiff-necked god from himself. Look, we all know the traditional heroic journey, right? The mighty god climbs the mountain, vanquishes the monster, saves the day, yada yada yada. But in this specific cosmic theater, Donar isn't the hero. He is merely a puppet with trembling hands who firmly believes he's the one pulling his own strings. The spirit siblings saw this static decay happening and decided, you know what? It is time to administer some chaotic medicine to a god who stubbornly refuses to go under correctly. And if we're speaking in Nietzschean terms here, to go under is absolutely crucial. It means to overcome oneself, to destroy the old, calcified, absolute truth so you can birth the new. But Donar? Well, Donar just wanted to hit things with his hammer. Okay, let's actually dive into this concept for a second. What exactly is chaotic medicine? Well, it's a subversive remedy. It is not a bitter pill you swallow, it's a punchline. It's literally meant to cure the rigid divine ego through pure absurdity, bizarre distortion, and artful mistakes. The spirit siblings totally understood that absolute truth. You know, the kind of rigid, unbending, suffocating dogma that Donar was clinging to is really just a calcified delusion. Chaotic medicine is the antidote to that. It's designed to completely shatter that delusion by making the so-called all-powerful god slip on a cosmic banana peel. Which brings us to Act 1, the puppet's ascent to the summit of glass. Just picture this for a second. There's Donar ascending this treacherous rocky precipice, huffing and puffing, fully convinced he is climbing towards some grand truth through force. He looks around at the silent decay of the world tree, Yggdrasil, and thinks to himself, yes, I know exactly how to fix this complex, deeply philosophical decay. I'm going to hit it really, really hard. I mean, it is the ultimate failure of the divine ego. In his own mind, his ascent is incredibly heroic. He's got this immutable stone chin and this punishingly hard grip. But then he reaches the summit and meets the first spirit sibling, the wit. And the wit doesn't meet him with a challenge of strength. Why would he? That would be playing the god's boring game. Instead, the wit simply meets him as a distorting mirror. He looks right past that hard grip and sees those trembling hands. With a single, devastating quip, the wit reveals that Donar's big, tough, immutable stone chin is actually just papier-mâché. He instantly reduces this grand, tragic ascent into a heap of delightful absurdity before a single strike even falls.
Moving right along, we arrive at Act 2, Swallowing the Tempest. This is the Hunger's trial.
So Donar is completely humiliated at this point. But is he humbled? Absolutely not. He decides to double down on his rigidity. He completely rejects all the brittle diplomatic treaties of his father and starts preparing his ultimate, definitive cleansing strike. He's expecting this glorious kingly crash built on all these precise equations of thunderous justice. Because, hey, if a small hammer blow doesn't work, obviously a massive apocalyptic storm will fix your papier-mâché ego, right? But to the second spirit sibling, the hunger, all of this self-righteous, explosive energy was just nutritious. The hunger didn't try to fight the lightning. I mean, you can't punch lightning. Instead, it just opened its maw and swallowed the entire thread of the storm's logic. It inhaled all that raw, natural power directly into a void of logic, taking those blinding bolts of absolute truth and liquefying them into a pathetic, wet, black slurry. Leaving Donar with nothing but a cacophony of how did this happen. Bless his rigid little heart, he literally had no idea what to do. And the brilliant, patronizing irony here is that the hunger was actually trying to save him. The sibling was genuinely trying to save the god from his own absolute negation by turning his precise, thunderous justice into an embarrassing, bewildered cosmic joke. It is chaotic medicine at its absolute finest, curing the rigid absolute by making it look completely and utterly ridiculous. So we must ask ourselves as we look over this terrifying precipice, will the stiff god ever learn to dance? Can a being who is entirely trapped inside his own rigid, absolute truth ever accept the grace of a mistake? The tension here is just thick, like fog rolling off a Gothic moor. Donar, now totally stripped of his dignity and his storm, aims his hammer at the bound blight, an abomination that, ironically, is really just a dark mirror of his own divine house. It's a classic, textbook, tragic setup.
Let's step into Act 3, the refused dance. The Small's temptation.
Right here is where we meet the final spirit sibling, the Small. As Donor winds up for this massive apocalyptic blow against his own dark reflection, he's offered one last lifeline. An artful mistake, a gentle little hiccup in the rhythm of the divine swing. The Small essentially flicked the back of Donner's knee. This tiny hiccup was the breeze meant to remind a stiff, decaying world how to dance. It was the ultimate graceful opportunity. Listen, if Donner had just stumbled, if he had just allowed himself to trip out of his rigid gait, he could have laughed. He could have avoided the justified termination of his entire divine line. It was his golden chance to break the absolute truth and just be alive.
But he didn't. Let's look at the fatal rigidity of a god who is just way too proud to stumble. Instead of letting go, he clutched the iron hammer of the ego like a tomb. He violently fought the chaotic whim, actively resisting the very medicine that could have saved his life. And ultimately, he forced the absolute blow to land. He deliberately chose the rigidity of absolute truth over the fluidity of existence. He completely rejected the dance. And in doing so, he sealed his own tragic, 100% self-inflicted fate. Oh, the absolute folly of gods.
Which inevitably takes us to Act 4, Swallowed by Soot, the inverted return. Here, my friends, the cosmic comedy turns into a grim, sobering reality. Because when you refuse the dance of chaotic medicine, the punchline of your failure is nothing short of gruesome. Let's walk through what actually happens. The absolute blow lands, instantly igniting the thorn of twilight. And the Grand Master of the Storm? He is completely swallowed in soot, sinking deep into an absolute freezing dark. It is the ultimate catastrophic failure of the divine ego. His rigid truth didn't bring any light. It brought the literal heat death of his own existence. He plunged himself directly into the very silent decay he was trying to purge. Honestly, it's deliciously ironic, isn't it? Finally, Act 5, The Jester's Living Ink, a grand comedy going under.
Parable XXX36 doesn't just leave us with a dead god in the dark. It details the survival and the inverted return of our mischievous spirit siblings who have successfully gone under the smoldering ruins of Valhalla. Donar's path was the iron hammer of the ego, leading straight to a static end in the freezing dark, a total dead end. But the Wanderer's path? The spirit siblings emerge from the ashes right at the feet of the Wanderer, and they gleefully watch as the Wanderer's own iron hammer magically melts away, transforming into a wooden jester's wand. It is the ultimate triumph of the chaotic whim. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that flexible, joyous chaos outlives rigid, immutable stone every single time.
And this brings us to the core concept of the living ink. It's defined as the fluid, surviving chaos of the spirit siblings that ensures the pages of existence remain damp. This stands in stark contrast to the static decay of absolute truth. Honestly, this is the very heart of the Nietzschean critique we've been unraveling today. The divine ego, so obsessed with ascending to some unattainable, perfect high ground, ultimately shatters itself because it simply cannot bend. But the chaotic medicine, the living ink, it knows exactly how to go under. It accepts the absurdity of it all, it embraces the mistakes, and because it flows, it survives the fire. Which leaves us with this final, rather beautiful thought. The ink remains wet for a grand, unscripted comedy yet to be written. Because, life isn't actually a rigid tragedy unless you absolutely force it to be. So I'll leave you with this question. As you face the storms in your own cosmic theater, are you going to stubbornly cling to the papier-mâché chin of absolute truth, just waiting for the soot and the freezing dark? Or are you ready to swallow your ego, embrace the artful mistake, and become part of the damp, fluid page of this glorious, unscripted comedy? The choice, my friends, is entirely yours to write.